We have another senator from the great state of Texas, somebody who is a leader in the Senate on space issues, and of course I saw him firsthand work very hard to create bipartisan legislation, the NASA Transition Authorization Act, to make sure that we had continuity of purpose as we go from one administration to the next. And of course, he's also the chairman of the Space Subcommittee in the Senate. I would also say he has a very personal connection to NASA, and maybe even before NASA existed. His mother was, in fact, working at the time for the Smithsonian Institute as a human calculator when Sputnik got launched, and she was responsible for making sure the United States of America knew what this little thing was doing out in space. Even better than that, his mom is a mighty rice owl. I'm a little biased. Hoot. Senator Ted Cruz.
That was a fearsome hoot there, Jim. This is exciting. This is really exciting. Look, I was here 2 years ago when the Turtles started, when y'all were first announced, when you were beginning the training. I remember visiting with each of you when you were getting started to be the first Artemis class. And I got to say, I was blown away then, and just sitting listening to the presentation. You know, there's a technical term for these men and women, and that's badass. I suspect I was not the only one, as you were listening to their backgrounds, who felt horribly, horribly inadequate. I did turn to John Cornyn and say, what the heck have we been doing with our lives? I mean, Johnny, you're a Navy SEAL with a degree from Harvard Medical School. That's just ridiculous. I mean, he can kill you and then bring you back to life. And do it all in space. You know, there are a lot of young people who are here, who are watching at home. And you think about when young people envision, what do I want to do in life? You get kids sitting around, and some may say, I want to be a fireman. Others might say, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a scientist. I want to be a ballerina. I want to be a superhero. And the answer that trumps all of those is, I want to be an astronaut. Because these guys with these training, they're going to have to do every bit of that. Every one of those, whether it is dancing in space in a spacewalk, dealing with a disaster, which unfortunately in the harsh realities of space, disaster is one of the things you count on, potentially saving the lives of your crew members. Think how many of them, when talking about their colleagues, said, I would trust my life to them. In most walks of life, you don't have to worry about that too much. In most jobs, look, frankly, the Senate, the only thing I have to worry about is someone giving me a paper cut. But for these guys, trusting your life to the men and women next to you is exactly what they're doing. And I have to say, these men and women embody the hopes and future. Think about little boys, little girls, going back from the dawn of time. Before we had airplanes, before we had automobiles, before we discovered the wheel, before we discovered fire, little boys, little girls stared up at the sky, looked at the stars, looked at the moon, said, what's out there? Who's out there? What is in the great beyond? That's what these men and women are charged with. It's almost like you could reach out and touch the moon. By the way, your toys are a lot better than just about all the rest of ours. But those hopes and dreams, you know, there are young people watching this today that you too could be an astronaut. You too can explore the great frontier. Let me just say as a final thing, you know, I do enjoy the power of space to bring people together, to cause my dear friend Jim Bridenstine, a diehard Okie, to stand up here and praise Texas effusively. There's something deeply beautiful about that, Jim. To bring together, look, this is a crazy political time, lots of partisan divisions, and yet for the 6 years I've chaired the Space Subcommittee in the Senate, we've seen bipartisan cooperation when it comes to space. We've seen Republicans and Democrats working together on space. And I want to say where we are right now, my hometown of Houston, all of Texas, but especially Houston, has a special and a deep connection to space. It was just a few miles away at Rice University where John F. Kennedy stood and promised within a decade we will send a man to the moon and bring him back safely. By the way, Kennedy in that same speech, he said, why do we do so? We do so for the same reason that Rice plays Texas. Not because it is easy, but because it is hard. You look at the city of Houston, our sports teams celebrate space. We have the Rockets, we have the Astros. As John mentioned, one of the very first words said on the surface of the moon was Houston. The eagle has landed. And what I'm so excited going forward with Artemis is that when the next astronaut lands on the moon, maybe one of these men and women, and by the way, as the father of 2 daughters, I could not be more excited that we will land a woman on the moon and bring her home safely. But when that next astronaut lands on the moon, once again, one of the very first words spoken will be Houston. And when that next astronaut lands on the surface of the red planet Mars, once again, one of those first words spoken will be Houston. And the city of Houston, the state of Texas, the entire country, and the entire world will be at your back. Congratulations. We're proud of you, and we love you.